Not sure. I don't have that answer for you, yeah.
So that's, okay,
Last thing, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's the right time is when it comes
Sorry,
up.
last
When
evening.
so you're,
Sure.
and I never had a chance to tell Denise.
Yep,
There's no public comment, Rob.
okay, sounds good. And we're good on recording and everything?
Yes, ready to go.
All right. All right, we'll call the regular board meeting for the Todd County Commissioners. Today's date is Tuesday, June 7th, 2022. All commissioners are present, along with the auditor treasurer, county coordinator, and representation from the county attorney's office. Please stand for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Amendments to the agenda.
I have none.
Changes.
I have none, Mr. Chair.
Do you want to note that here, Barb, maybe, that we would just have?
Yeah, I would like to, when we get to 4.2, I'd like to pull that out for clarification.
Just so when we get there, Denise, that we don't jump right through it. There's just a question or two on that, so.
Sure.
Okay. Any other amendments to the agenda? Otherwise, hearing no other changes, I would look for a motion to adopt the agenda with that change.
So moved.
Motion by Kircher. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Kneisel. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Consent items.
Today's consent items are meeting minute approval for May 17th and May 31st of 2022. And the hiring of Spencer Norlinger, Planning and Zoning intern, summer of 2022, open for discussion.
Okay, yeah, that's one I like to have pulled out. Okay, I guess I like to have some clarification. It says that he's going to be doing culvert work? Or keeping track of culverts? Yeah,
Yeah,
please.
probably best to come up to the mic.
Good morning. Yeah, so Spencer will be doing culvert inventorying,
Chipper County.
township roads, and then maybe some of those public, private maintained ones along the way too.
Got a real big question because the county has nothing to do with township roads. So why are we hiring someone to oversee the townships?
This is not for township information though, it's more for soil and water information. We need these culverts for some of the computer programs that we operate to design practices. The GIS program recognizes a road as a dam otherwise, so we need to know the exact location of those culverts to draw in lines so water can flow through.
Okay.
So it's for county purposes, we do this either way, but it's an opportunity to team up with some of our townships also.
Okay, so it's planning and zoning or soil and water? That's hiring.
Some of both, but it'll be a soil and water project. Planning and zoning uses this information also.
Okay, because when we were at the annual township meeting, we had discussion with some of the townships. They heard nothing about this. They have already on file their township ditches because they do a road meeting every spring. So are we redoing something that's already being done?
We're gonna, for the information that they already have, we'll get that and use it, but most of them don't have a significant culvert inventory, or at least not the information that, to the level we would need. The reason a lot of other townships haven't heard about it is because we're operating this more as like a pilot program for now. So I've already worked just only with the townships we're gonna work in, which is Hartford Township and Kendota Township. Those are the townships that we do a majority of our projects in at the time, with the Sauk River, watershed, one plan being completed. There's gonna be a lot of activity down that way. And then with the Long Prairie River almost done, that Hartford area is gonna have some projects coming up too. So just anticipating future need, those are where we targeted first. Had conversations with those townships and they're really excited to work with us going forward.
Okay, so is this planning and zoning hire or soil and water hire?
Does it make much difference to us?
It does.
It does forward, yeah.
Okay. Right, and that's, I think, what we are intending, and so that little bit of, this is through Sourcewell, so they're reimbursing the county for, the wages, and then, I don't know, Sarah, if you wanna add in what we have to cover. The
So
tax
we're
perp-
covering taxes and workers' compensation insurance for the employee.
And we'll be able to absorb that into the planning and zoning budget just simply based on staff leaving and coming and retirements and things like that. So it should not have a significant impact budget-wise.
Okay, and you are working with the townships, correct?
Yes. Yep,
I mean,
I've
I
had
don't want us to
conversations with
see
both.
Trying to overrun or overtake our authority on those roads, because we
Right.
don't have any.
Right, absolutely. And it's really a collection of our information and an opportunity to work with them. I have talked with both townships, and they're really excited to work together with us, and even asked if they could help out along the ways in collecting information for us also.
Okay,
And if this doesn't go well this summer, I guess the pilot program's ended. But our intentions is to do the whole county over a course of time. Neighboring counties are doing the exact same thing. That culvert information is very important.
okay, thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Okay, and moving on with the potential consent items then would be the solid waste seasonal hire, Nathan Ruda, summer of 2022. Appoint social worker Lisa Grossinger, start date to be determined. Hire seasonal recreational assistant Benjamin Larson, start date to be determined. And gambling permit for Stratton Blackbirds National Wildlife Turkey Federation.
Okay, you've heard the consent items as listed. I'd look for a motion to approve.
So move.
Motion by Becker, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Newman, discussion. Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Auditor Treasurer.
First item today, I have auditor warrants for May 2022. Background was sent for your review. Recommendation is to approve the May 2022 auditor warrants with an ACH and a regular manual payment totaling in the amount of $12,846,780.90. That's a big number.
Okay, you've seen the board action for the auditor warrants totaling $12,846,780.90. Looking for a motion.
So move, Mr. Chair, and I would assume there were some tax payoffs too.
That's our May settlement from taxes. That's exactly correct.
Motion by Kircher, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Kneisel, roll call.
Could I have discussion?
Oh, I'm
just on
sorry,
one item?
my bad.
No, there was an item in there that was RJ Contracting and Remodeling for $2,453.88. And it was for a garage door, and I called Denise yesterday, and it was supposed to be for the fairgrounds, a north garage door.
That's what the claim invoice states. I couldn't,
My question, is it for the door that, that Zamboni hit, which would be in the south inside door? I guess I'd like to have clarification what door that was for.
Madam Chair, I don't have any additional information.
just what's on the,
Commissioner Becker, I don't have
Yeah.
any additional information on that.
Yeah, so maybe we could check that out. I mean, paying it, I don't have a problem for
Right.
it, but if it's supposed to be reimbursed back to the county, if that happened to be that door.
Right, could be that, and then a
It could
reimbursement
be-
coming
I
back.
pulled the invoice for Commissioner Becker late yesterday afternoon. I think it was actually when we were going out the door.
Yeah,
And, all it stated on there was north door
I don't know what. a north
fairgrounds,
door
and
is.
so
I can check that out, follow up on it,
Sure.
if that's all
Yeah,
right.
just so we have clarification of that. And then the other thing, Chris and I talked this morning was that pictometry bill on there, which we're discussing at the last agenda item, but that was from,
Yeah, so for clarification on that pictometry, that's our last payment of a 3-year contract. So that's the final payment for the 2020 contract that was 2020, 21, 22. So what we're going to be discussing later in the agenda is a new contract with a flyover in 2023.
Okay, any other discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Commissioner Kircher,
Yes.
Commissioner Kneisel,
Yes.
Commissioner Becker,
yes,
Commissioner Newman,
Yes.
Commissioner Erickson.
Yes.
All right, the next item I have then is the commissioner warrants. Background is sent for your review. Recommendation is to approve the commissioner warrants with an ACH and a regular manual payment totaling in $100,288.50.
All right, you've seen the board action for the commissioner warrants totaling $100,288.50. Looking for a motion.
So move.
Motion by Newman. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Becker. Discussion. Hearing none, roll call.
Commissioner Newman?
Yes.
Commissioner Becker?
Yes.
Commissioner Kneisel?
Yes.
Commissioner Kircher?
Yes.
Commissioner Erickson?
Yes.
Next item I have is the Health and Human Service Commissioner warrants. Background is sent for review. Recommendation is to approve the Health and Human Service Commissioner warrants with an ACH and a regular manual payment totaling in the amount of $100,901.30.
All right, we've seen the board action for the Health and Human Services Commissioner warrants totaling amount $100,901.30. Looking for a motion.
So move.
Motion by Becker. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Newman. Discussion. Hearing none, roll call.
Commissioner Becker?
Yes.
Commissioner Newman?
Yes.
Commissioner Kneisel?
Yes.
Commissioner Kircher?
Yes.
Commissioner Erickson?
Yes.
The last item I have then for you is the Health and Human Service SSIS warrants. Background was sent for your review. Recommendation is to approve the Health and Human Service SSIS warrants with an ACH and a regular manual payment totaling in the amount of $68,966.29.
All right, you've seen the board action for the Health and Human Services SSIS warrants totaling $68,966.29. Looking for a motion.
So moved.
Motion by Kneisel. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Becker. Discussion. Hearing none, roll call.
Commissioner Kneisel?
Yes.
Commissioner Becker?
Yes.
Commissioner Kircher?
Yes.
Commissioner Newman?
Yes.
Commissioner Erickson?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ditch Egg Inspector. Welcome back, Nancy.
Thank you. All right, I have one agenda item today. It's County Ditch 33 Hold Harmless Agreement for Ditch Maintenance. Recommendations, Todd County Board of Commissioners approves the following by motion. Acting as Ditch Authority approves a hold harmless agreement petition from Chad Basil to clean approximately 2,139 feet of lateral 11 on County Ditch 33, located on his parcel 20-00-35700, Brian Nystrom's parcel 20-00-34303, and Russell Ager's parcel 20-00-35000 in Reynolds Township, Section 31 and 32. This project will be done at Chad's own expense.
All right, you've seen the board action and the resolution in regards to the hold harmless agreement ditch maintenance for County Ditch 33. Looking for a motion.
So moved.
Motion by Newman. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Kneisel. Discussion.
If you want to just roll up to the pictures.
There's been a lot of work on that ditch, huh?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yep.
a lot of cleaning, maintenance.
So this was after that last rain event we had, so it
Well,
went up a little bit, but the east side of the road is pretty much grown in. on it, so.
all right, we had a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy. County Sheriff. Morning, Lonnie.
Good morning. Just a couple of quick things. The first item, it would be the 2022 federal patrol grant for our water patrol. The Sheriff's Office would like the board to accept the 2022 federal patrol grant in the amount of $3,500. The grant was awarded to the Sheriff's Office and will supplement the cost of the federal boat and water safety grant patrol hours.
All right, you've seen the board action for the 2022 federal patrol grant. Looking for a motion.
So moved.
Motion by Kircher. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Kneisel. Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
All right, and the second item will be the Todd County Chaplain Griever stipend increase. So a little bit of background, the Sheriff's Office requested an increase chaplain griever stipend by 2% His stipend is currently at $1,000 per month. We're requesting to increase it to $1,020 per month, for a grand total of only a total of $240 extra for the year. We did budget this for 2022, as I guess we didn't realize we had to come back to the board to get it approved, being it was in the budget, so that's why we're here. So if approved, we'd like to backdate it to January of 2022.
All right, you've seen the board action for the stipend increase for the Todd County chaplain. Looking for a motion.
So move, Mr. Chair, but I'm really disappointed in the lack of what we pay that young man for what he does. So he done probably 10 years for nothing.
As I say, he did a lot of work for very little, yes. It's a great help to have in our office, I know that.
He does a lot of debriefing and helps a lot of grieving families in situations that are not very comfortable. But when I was on the budget committee, I had suggested to the sheriff that we give him an increase, and $20 increase per month is actually peanuts, Mr. Chair. So he'll probably lose that in taxes. So I don't know. I just think we should have a little more discussion in paying him a little more.
Would you like me to carry it to a second for discussion? You made it as a motion.
Yes. Yeah, I'll move it for discussion too.
I'll second it.
Seconded by Kneisel. We'll open it for discussion.
I guess my question, Mr. Chair, is what could the budget handle to pay him? I think what you're doing is following the union settlement, am I correct?
That's what we're going with. We're just trying to follow along with the cost of living increases that the other unions are receiving, yes.
Is that what you budgeted for? Was it
2% is what we
2%
did
in-
budget for, but I think the unions that have settled are 2.5s, but.
So he gets $240 a year. I know he spends a lot of his own money doing his job, but at least when I was there and when he came in, that was the issue. So I don't know what other board members feel.
Just for some background, in 2007, there was an employee agreement for $500, and then in 2014, we had another employee agreement for $500 a
Right.
month. And then in 2020, Sheriff Ox sent a payroll increase from 5,000 to 1,000 a month, adjustment by a letter to payroll. So it's whatever you
5,000.
decide.
Wait,
we just need
500
to
to
know.
1,000.
5,000, you said.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, 500 to
500
1,000.
to
Well, if
1,000.
we give him 5,000 a month, I'll move the,
No, I'm just giving you some history on it, so, whatever you decide
I
is
don't know,
fine.
I
We
don't
just-
really know, Mr. Chair, how a person could live on those wages. I really don't. And for the job he does, so.
Does it kind of fall back on the sheriff's budget thing?
Yeah, that's
too?
what I'm asking, what it could handle. I don't know.
If there's
Maybe the
room
answer
for
is
that, or
today.
if you want
Yeah.
to send it back for more discussion and bring it back.
Yeah, I just say we could look at the numbers and come back on a different date, but
But is my understanding you need this passed because it will be retro to September, or
to
January?
back to January.
And then I would move that we do that, Mr. Chair, but I would ask the sheriff to bring it back for more discussion at the next board meeting.
Okay.
All right, we'll do that.
So the motion would be to carry through with what's being presented as now with the increase, and seconded by Kneisel. 2%. Any further discussion at this time?
I do. When does the sheriff office meet with the finance committee?
We did.
We did once,
You did once.
just the preliminary.
And-
Should it be discussed there before it's brought back to the board?
That will be happening fairly soon, so we can coordinate that.
Yeah, we could wait.
Be a better,
Because the second
Scenario
callbacks are
of
not very
bringing it
far
back.
out. Yeah.
Well, that's a good suggestion to discuss it, but that would be for the 23 budget.
23,
Yeah.
yeah.
What I'm asking for is to discuss it for the 22 budget.
Correct.
and I don't know what the sheriff budget looks like
Yeah, I don't,
at this
that's why I'm
point.
asking to look at it and see what.
All right, so we'll look for that to come back for there. We had a motion and a second, motion by Kircher, second by Kneisel. All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Carried. Thank you, Lonnie.
Thank you.
Morning, Mike. I'm not used to picking that face out in the crowd there yet, so. I was looking for Chris.
Right. Pretty simple contract. We are working with an agreement again with Minnesota Department of Agricultural to extend our pesticide and fertilizer waste program. It is a revenue generating contract. This contract starts in July 1st of 2022. So we're looking for the board to approve this contract. The difference is they were paying us 25 cents per pound in the old 5-year contract, and the new one is 50 cents per pound. We're asking to approve the contract or not to approve the contract for the solid waste.
And recommendation is to approve, correct?
Yes.
All right. So we have a board action in regards to a cooperative agreement for the waste pesticide collection. Looking for a motion.
So moved.
Motion by Kneisel. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Newman. Discussion?
Yes, Mr. Chair, just for clarification, Mike, does this include paint?
This is just purely for the pesticide and fertilizer.
Okay, is there a separate one for paint collection?
Yep, that's under our HHW contract,
Okay,
so.
thank you.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Opposed? Carried. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
Planning and zoning. Morning, Adam.
Good morning. This is in regards to the Sauk River Comprehensive Watershed Management Plan. Sauk River Watershed Comprehensive Watershed Management Plan has been formally approved and is now ready, to receive implementation funds. A biennial work plan has been developed and reviewed by the policy committee and is ready for adoption by local boards. The option would be to approve the biennial work plan as presented or do not. The recommendation would be to approve the Sauk River Comprehensive Watershed Management Biennial Work Plan by the attached resolution. Much of the projects you'll see on there are identified in the plan as priority, but also we were trying to get through some of our shovel-ready projects that also fit those categories. So hopefully this first work plan is very efficient with getting projects done and getting projects paid out.
Okay, you've seen the board action, and I believe there, along with that, is a resolution to adopt the Comprehensive Watershed Management Biennial Work Plan. Looking for a motion.
So moved.
Motion by Newman. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Kneisel. Discussion? Hearing none. All in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Thank you.
Thank you. Health and Human Services. Good morning, Jackie. I should have said Jackie and crew.
Yeah, right? All right. Our first board action form to present is a resolution establishing support for seeking funding from Sourcewell for community match funding for collaborative intensive bridging services. Some background. Region 5 counties, including Todd, would like to seek funding through the community match funding opportunity through Sourcewell. Funding would allow collaboration with collaborative intensive bridging services, which is also known as SIBS, to increase therapeutic skill level of county agency staff and therapeutic partner staff in Region 5 to provide intensive mental health services for youth 18 to 17 years old. Options: to approve the resolution establishing support seeking funding from Sourcewell for collaborative bridging intensive services for youth in Region 5 or to not approve. It's our recommendation to approve the resolution establishing the support for seeking funding from Sourcewell for collaborative intensive bridging services for youth in Region 5. We have the resolution attached for the application. Mike or Richard, do you have anything you would like to add?
No, this is just a continuation of the project that we'd started over a year ago. We'd originally received some funding from Sourcewell through the innovation funding grants to kind of kick the project off, and now looking to use community match funding to kind of continue that project. with the coordinator. We're currently actively seeking the therapeutic foster homes for the phase 2 of the project. And this match funding would help us to continue to support the coordinator and to support the foster home efforts as well.
And the match funding would be out of our budgeted, out of the budget already, so there isn't any additional dollars that we would have to pull from.
Okay. All right, we've seen the board action.
Mr. Chair, it is
yes.
budgeted then, because it's
Budgeted
not
item.
checked, okay.
In the current budget, correct?
Okay.
All right. Seen the board action in regards to a resolution establishing support for funding from Sourcewell in a community matching fund for the collaborative intensive bridging services. Looking for a motion.
So moved.
Motion by Kircher. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Kneisel. Discussion.
Yes, Mr. Chair. Jackie, the age is 8 to 17. Have we worked with programs younger or older? I thought, or is this more of a standalone program?
The age parameters is really where the SIBS program was based on with their the target crowd. It's generally, we're probably not going to be dealing with the ones that are in the younger age. It's probably going to be in the more adolescent age group that we're going to see coming into this program. That's probably going to be the most kids that'll be served in that in this program, but it does kind of have a pretty wide range. And this is the program that has an intensive family therapy component as phase 1. The family therapist continues with the family through phase 2, which includes the up to a 30-day placement in a family foster home if that's what's required. And then phase 3, where that family therapist then continues with that family and child post-placement as well.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Thank you.
All right, our next board action form is a resolution to recommend UCare and Blue Plus to provide healthcare services to recipients of Families and Children Medical Assistance and Minnesota Care in Todd County. Some background. In Minnesota, the Minnesota Department of Human Services is conducting procurement in 2022 to recommend managed care plans for the provision of health services to the recipients of Families and Children's Medical Assistance and Minnesota Care. Todd County has reviewed the proposals and recommending UCare and Blue Plus as the managed care plans effective January 1st, 2023. Our options are to approve by resolution the recommendation of UCare and Blue Plus to provide health care services to the recipients of Families and Children Medical Assistance and Minnesota Care in Todd County effective January 1st, 2023, or to not approve the resolution. Our recommendation is to approve the UCare and Blue Plus to provide health services to the recipients of Families and Children Medical Assistance and Minnesota Care in Todd County effective January 1st, 2023. The resolution is attached.
Okay, you've seen the board action in regards to the resolution to recommend UCare and Blue Plus as services for the Family and Children Medical Assistance Minnesota Care in Todd County. I just have a quick question. Is that what we're currently with? And this is just something continuing? Okay. I would be looking for a motion.
So move.
Motion by Becker. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Newman. Any further discussion?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Is this what South Country used to take care of? Yeah. So, I know when we were talking about getting out, we were told that was gonna cost us so much more. Is it? No.
No,
Okay.
it isn't at all. It's been a very smooth transition.
Good.
Good.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
All right, next we have the Hilltop Regional Kitchen Letter of Support. Some background, Hilltop Regional Kitchen is applying for the USDA Rural Development Grant and needs a letter of support from Todd County to proceed with their application. This grant will fund a new air conditioning unit for the kitchen's hood, not food.
Good, yeah.
Options to approve the Hilltop Regional Kitchen's letter of support or to not approve. It's our recommendation that you approve the kitchen's Hilltop USDA Rural Development Letter of Support. Catherine, do you have anything you want to add?
No, this is a great grant application, an opportunity for us through USDA. This would be our third application to them under the Community Facilities Grant, and so we're very fortunate to have USDA support for the kitchen over the past few years. They will fund up to 75% of the total project cost, so it's a really great opportunity.
All right, you've seen the board action for the Hilltop Regional Kitchen Letter of Support. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Kneisel, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Newman. Discussion?
Yes, Mr. Chair, it gets so hot in the kitchen in the summertime, they need some.
Yeah, the problem was partially when they built the kitchen, it wasn't traditionally done, and again, don't ask me about HVAC questions, but from what I understand is this should have been added when we built the kitchen, but it wasn't typically done at that time, and now over the past few years operating the kitchen, the building's AC can't keep up, and so the kitchen staff are very, very hot, especially in the summer, and with the size of that hood that they put in, it needs its own unit, and so of course that costs about $70,000 to put in, and we're requesting, with all the electrical and additional work that needs to be done, so this grant would cover about $52,000.
And their budget is good to cover the
Correct.
remaining balance?
Yep, we have other donations and funds to cover the
Nice.
remaining. Mhm.
Any other discussion, questions? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Next, board action form, we have revised health education coordinator job description. Some background, the health education coordinator position description has been modified to change the title to health education coordinator, community outreach, and interpreter to include interpreting and translation duties. This will allow the current employee in this position to perform these duties. Options are to approve the revised position description or to not approve. It's our recommendation to revise the position description for health education coordinator, community outreach, and interpreting. No fiscal implications to this revision.
No financial implications, right? All right, you've seen the board action to the revised health education coordinator job description. Looking for a motion.
So moved.
Motion by Newman, is there a second? Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Kneisel. This did come in front of personnel and we discussed it twice.
Twice.
Yep, before
So-
we moved ahead with it and stuff. And basically, it's just a change in wording
Probably.
3 times, yeah.
I know it was twice for sure,
Yep.
so.
There was good research done on it and trying not to stir the boat or tip the boat or whatever. But it's basically just wording, so. Any other questions, discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Administration.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a board action this morning to approve the pictometry contract for a 2023 flyover with an optional 2026 flight. So I brought this topic to our last work session just to kind of talk about the project a little bit and the costs. I shared with you at that time that the cities had an opportunity to participate in this flyover as well. I was able to reach out to the 3 cities, Browerville, Long Prairie, and Staples, and they are willing to partake in this flyover for this 3-year period. So the background for this is Todd County has participated in aerial photography flyovers provided by Pictometry International with previous flights in 2008, 2013, 2017, and 2020. Special promotional pricing exists to have a flyover completed in 2023 that would provide 6-inch resolution for county and 3-inch resolution for the cities of Browerville, Long Prairie, and Staples. As part of the agreement with Pictometry, an optional second flyover could be obtained in 2026 With the same resolution, much interest has been expressed to complete this flyover, and it is the desire of offices using the imagery to continue these flyovers every 3 years if funding exists. The total cost of the 2023 flyover is $129,300. The Compliance Committee is in agreement to fund the project and allow the cities of Browerville, Long Prairie, and Staples to participate at the per sector cost for their respective cities. Payments can be made over a 3-year period as in previous years. The options are to approve the pictometry contract and complete the flyover for 2023 with the optional 2026 flight, or do not approve, and the recommendation is to approve. The financial implications are listed with the city contributions in the comments.
You've seen the board action to approve the pictometry contract for a 2023 flyover with optional 2026. Looking for a motion.
Move for discussion.
Motion by Kircher, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Knizel, discussion.
Mr. Chair, just a couple questions. On the city part of their payments, I would assume ours has gone up, and did we raise theirs appropriately with the?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Kircher, yes.
So
This
what-
is all broken down by sector.
Okay. It just seems like a minimal amount that they're paying, and we're paying a huge amount, so I just, is that,
We're following the same formula that we have followed in the past.
okay.
And the Pictometry International breaks all of these down by specific sectors. So however many sectors are determined within Long Prairie City, within Browerville City, within Staples, there's a specific cost attached to that 3-inch resolution for that sector, and that's exactly what they're being charged for.
So the city of Staples, is that we're doing, that they're paying for, is that also part of Wadena County?
There's a portion of it that goes into Wadena County. There's an overlap. So when Wadena does their flyover, there's always an overlap as well. But there would be a slight overlap into Wadena County because it does go over.
Okay, then they pay Wadena County, or?
They pay us.
Okay.
That little bit of flyover that goes, every sector that they have, they pay for.
Okay. Just seems like a minimal amount to me, but.
It does, but we're following the exact same way that we built them in the past.
Any other discussion?
I've got a question. Chris, on doing these flyovers, and we just talked about doing the township culverts before, earlier in this meeting, could this not be used to pick up some of those culverts? Yes, no, indifferent?
I don't think we would get the same type of inventory. I don't know that we could get that depth. If that's what planning and zoning is looking for, like the depth of that culvert, I don't know we'd get to that level of detail, and I don't believe that we would, because this is 6-inch resolution. When we're outside of those city areas, I don't think we'd see the detail.
And Mr. Chair, if I may, I think they're also gonna GPS them, so they're located exactly where they're at, if I'm correct. Right.
Both sides of the
Right.
city picture,
So,
they could go straight through our
And this doesn't GPS them, you may be able to spot them, but if you GPS them, you have a good inventory of where they're exactly at, so.
So it's gonna give some great aerial imagery of that, but not the level of detail that they're asking for.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Thank you.
Standing reports, auditor treasurer.
I have nothing to report, just that May, like we said in the commissioner warrants, May settlement was paid out to all the taxing districts, townships, cities, school districts. And then filings closed May 31st for elections, so we're full in election season mode with starting our trainings. And next week, the first half of the week is the recorders convention, and the second half of the week is auditor treasurers. So I'll be gone the last half of the week. That's all I have.
I think the only thing I have to add to that is we've started the preliminary meetings with the finance committee. That's moving along very nicely,
That is
going
correct.
very well.
We've had 2 meeting sessions last week, Thursday, and then yesterday.
We have
and
one
they're
more.
going very well.
Yep, and we have one more this week, and I think that finishes up the
First round.
preliminary ones. Yep. So yeah, things are going along good that way. Commissioners' reports. Anybody got?
Mr. Chair, Barb and I attended the corrections meeting last evening, or yesterday afternoon, late, and Kathy gave us a report on the damage to the STS building in Eagle Bend. And I think if I'm correct, Barb, it's gonna be a total loss. And it appears that MCIT hasn't sent the adjuster yet, but will be arriving, I'm sure, either sometime this week or next week, to look things over, but it appears that I would say, have fairly good coverage on it, so. And the executive committee last night decided to kind of appoint a committee to look at whether we want to, whether that is a good spot to be rebuilding, or if we could find a different location, so. The ideal place is Eagle Bend because it is centrally located between Long Prairie and Wadena for the sentence to serve crews, so. They're just gonna look at things and determine what to report back to the executive committee, and that, Barb, I don't know if I missed anything.
No, this pretty much covers it. I think the one building is pretty much damaged, and the dry storage building
Isn't.
is not. It was intact. but
One of our
yes.
trees fell on the street and damaged a couple cars. Now, I don't know how that works out as far as, they were talking about homeowners covers that or something. I
Or
don't-
the vehicle
Yeah, homeowner,
insurance
yes.
might cover that vehicle, but there
So-
was a tree in good health
Yeah, that
that
fell.
fell on, it was either 2 or 3 cars
Yep,
that were
on the
parked
street,
on
yeah.
the street. Yeah, so,
And then, Mr. Chair, I did attend, well, I didn't attend, but I did by virtual, the Mississippi Watershed District, River, One Watershed, One Plan. I discovered and learned that this will go into 23 and 24, if I'm correct, and I am not rerunning for office, so I have asked Barb if she would continue. The next full board meeting, I think, is in September, August. And I've asked Barb to participate, because there's no need in me to participate. I'm not gonna be, at the end of the year, I'll be done. So if you wanna reappoint whoever gets elected to my position to be on that, that'd be probably a good idea, but I've asked Barb to take over, so there's no sense me being involved in trying to keep up with things and make decisions that I won't be there later to be a part of, so.
okay.
And Barb is the alternate anyway, so.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, he asked Barb, I didn't hear Barb accept, so I'm just kinda waiting to see what happens here, so.
No,
I wasn't gonna get on my knees, but
Kinda waiting for the outcome of this yet, Dave. I just,
she was excited, I could just see it in her.
anyone else?
yes, I was able to be in a roundtable discussion with Amy Kobasha, and I think it was 3 other commissioners from around Minnesota, and one mayor, and a guy in a car who I'm not sure who he was, because he was driving. But it was due to the May 12th storm that went through the Clarissa area. I'd like to thank Chris and Mike to give me the information. I was actually in Colorado at the time when they contacted me, and so a phone call, and I got the information I needed, so thank you.
Nice.
The other thing is I attended the annual township meeting over in Clarissa also, so, and that's all I have.
All right. Anyone else?
Lots of meetings.
Yeah, no kidding, no shortage of them. All right, coordinator.
Just a reminder to all of you that next Tuesday, we have the County Board of Appeals and Equalization meeting, June 14th at 4, and then on June 17th, at Friday, we have our District 4 AMC spring meeting in Otter Tail County.
Okay. And we should probably add to this list now that we get nice representation for the attorney's office here. Do we have any new comment from the attorney's office?
Just to say that our new hire, Alexandra Meyer, is working out great, and glad to have her on board. Thank you.
Yep, thank you. All right, with that, we will recess until June 22nd. Does that sound right?
21st?
21st, sorry. All right, and we will Everybody back and we're good to go, right, on recording wise? All right, we'll call the work session to order. And first on the agenda is a Bowser update from Adam and Chris Pence.
Good morning again. Here with Chris Pence, our board conservationist from the Board of Water and Soil Resources. It's been a while since Chris has given an update to the county board, so I'll really just turn it over to you, Chris, and then if we have any questions at the end, we'll work through them.
All right, thanks a lot, Adam. Mr. Chair, Commissioners, it's nice to see you guys again. I was checking through my notes, and I think the last time I was here was about a year and a half ago, so I figured it'd probably be worth a quick update and just to check in and see how things are going, and feel free to ask questions. I've got a couple of things that I thought we could go through. First, last time I was here, we spent some time on just, what is one watershed, one plan, and kind of going through the more of the process, procedure, how that looks, and I come back now and I see some one watershed, one plan experts from the policy committee up here. So it's nice to now have some experience with that, and so from a Bowser perspective, it's really important having elected officials engaged and really putting in the effort to with doing this planning process, and it does make a difference. So I know Commissioner Newman, you were the policy committee member for the SOC, and Commissioner Becker with Long Prairie, and Commissioner Kircher, I know you've with Mississippi Brainerd just starting up, and sounds like Barb gets to draw a second watershed to that. So I do appreciate it. It does make a difference having that local leadership, and I just want to say, thanks for that. I see the map is brought up here. Last time I was here, about half of those watersheds weren't colored in. We were really still working on getting some of these watersheds into the process. And so what you're looking at now is the colors that are in green have approved plans, and they've started implementation. So they're getting some of those Clean Water Fund dollars to begin doing projects on the ground. The areas that you see, the different colors are just based on the years that they entered into the program. So you can see we've got some watersheds. The Rum has an approved plan now, so that would be the last of the 18s, and then the purples are the 19s, the yellow 20s, and then the oranges are the new starts for 21. That's actually starting here in 22. So when I was here last time, I think everybody was still a little bit, learning the ropes a little bit. The big word that we're using now is that it's gone from a pilot to kind of a thing. It's become its own. It's really taken off. I mean, it's very exciting to see. And if you look at, I made a copy of this map I got from Adam and from your GIS folks, and you do cover quite a few watersheds, and they got 5 of them total. The area in orange kind of is that area that's Mississippi Brainerd. You're starting up working in right now. Down in the far corner, a real small part of Mississippi Sartell. The green is the Long Prairie River watershed. That pinkish color puts you in the SOC, and then that bluish color up on that northwest is the part of the Crowing River, and then the Red Eye River. And so you do have quite a few watersheds that you are involved in, and the watershed that is just finishing up now is the Long Prairie, and thank you again to Commissioner Becker for her time on that. It's going to the 60-day comment period right now, and then once that comes back, there'll be a public hearing before the policy committee in August. I believe it's the 18th, if I remember correctly. And then at that point, the next step would be then to recommend approval of that plan to Bowser. We have a committee that reviews that, and they make a final recommendation to the full Bowser board. That would be in October. And so once that comes into play and gets approved, it comes back to you guys again to adopt locally. And then at that point, you begin the implementation process of updating your memorandum of agreement for implementation. And that I do really want to commend your staff. They've been working very diligently through this planning process. The one thing that's been I think really is going to make this a very smooth process is that in other watersheds I've worked in, there's been the 60-day comment period, and so everybody kind of takes sometimes a kind of a timeout. They've chosen to not do that. They've chosen to continue working through that 60-day, to continue meeting as staff and putting together all the paperwork that'll be needed so that when the time comes and you've got an approved plan, it'll be a quicker path to implementation. And so it's important to keep the momentum going, and sometimes when you do have it's planning fatigue. You know, I mean, there's a lot of effort that puts into that process, and if you can continue through, it makes that step into implementation much smoother. So your staff should be commended for the time and effort that they're putting into that. I think the next slide down, does it look like this? Yeah, there we go. This is lining up pretty good. So these are the watersheds that you guys are working in. The top kind of shows the funding amounts that have been approved by the Bowser Board for 22 and 23. And so, you know, you'll be looking at $715,000 for the Long Prairie River. A big chunk of that watershed is in Todd County, so I would expect, you know, projects in that area to follow along into Todd as well. So just to remember, these are non-competitive funds, so they come after you have an approved plan. It's based on the public-private amount of land within the watershed, and then they have a formula for looking at shoreline and creeks and rivers and wetlands. They have a formula for that. So that's kind of how these numbers are playing out. I think what's important to know about this too, though, is that we're really transitioning from that competitive program where you had to apply for specific projects and it was very time intensive and we always had more applications than we had funds available. We're transitioning away from that into this non-competitive. So while these may be the funds you see today, I think these funds are probably going to increase in numbers as you go along, because there's going to be a total of 5 funding periods that these dollars will be available, provided the legislature does their allocation and all that. But following the trends that we've seen, these numbers you'll be seeing, you know, every 2 years, that 714,000 or more, I think, as we go down. So, you know, at the end of 10 years, there'll have been millions of dollars that will be coming into this watershed. And again, those dollars are from the Clean Water Legacy Amendment back in 2008 that we voted on to increase our sales tax by 0.3%, and so that's what funds where that money comes from. If you take a look on that next, what's I think most important about this is to look at the back page of this one, and that's where you can really see where the funding starts in 18, where the area in green is competitive, the area in that bluish color is our non-competitive or watershed based. And by the time we start getting into 22, 23, 24, 26, 28, those fiscal years, you see the colors switch. And that's why you're gonna see more funding going to those non-competitive grants, because we're gonna be not putting in as much money into those competitive grants. So that's gonna be really the big change with that. The planning process itself is going well, particularly for the Long Prairie. You know, from planning start to end, you know, the actual drafting the plan has taken about 12 months, which puts you in the, you know, right, I think you're the quickest developing watershed plan for this cohort of watersheds. You've got good staff, you've got a great consultant, and then obviously a good solid policy committee. It makes for a good process overall. I'm not going to go, you guys can look through this however you want, but I just really wanted to show you the funding piece that came on the back here. I think is the most important part of that. Are there any questions about One Watershed, One Plan, or anything along those lines? You know, at the end of the day, this is going to replace your county water planning process. We'll be moving to the watershed planning process, and I think with this non-competitive funding, I think it's going to allow for a more streamlined approach to getting projects done, and the collaborative approach that I'm seeing right now between the counties and SWCDs within the watershed has been outstanding, and so I expect that to go forward as we get into that implementation side. One thing I'm going to bring up, and I think it's just something to consider and to think about, is as we see these dollars coming in and these amounts coming in, it's just, you know, making sure we're having the discussion about capacity and making sure that we have the staff available to be able to work on these projects, to work with our landowners, because at the end of the day, we need private landowners who are willing to do projects. And to be able to do that, we need the people to be able to go out and engage those landowners and have those discussions. So there's not a set number. There's no, I'm not coming in today to say there are any concerns or issues, but I think the conversation itself should be had to just to make sure that that we're able to implement these dollars and get these projects done. And I think that's just a consideration that I think would need to be made when looking at that. Like last night, we had the Mississippi Brainerd kickoff event for the planning process for Mississippi Brainerd. And we counted everybody who was there, and if you counted staff and citizens, there were 71 people that attended on a nice warm night in June where it was a great night. Everybody chose to come to that. A bunch of people did. And so I think if you look at it, probably from a citizen perspective, there's probably about 50 people there, and the other rest were staff. Very engaged citizenry. A lot of folks were there from Todd, and so it was great to see that, and a lot of good questions. We had some presentations done. They got stuck listening to me like you're stuck listening to me today, but they had that a little bit. PCA was there to talk about some of the things that they know about the watershed based on their monitoring that they do. And then Camp Ripley provided an update on what they do at camp. And so Camp Ripley is part of the Mississippi Brainerd Watershed, so they'll be a part of that process and part of that conversation too. But I've had, this will be my, Mississippi Brainerd will be my 4th kickoff that I've been a part of. And that was the best kickoff event I've been to. Very engaged. So I'm looking forward to this process, because one thing that I see Todd bringing to the table as part of this planning is to making sure that we're engaging your citizens. And so staff, Adam and Deja are always asking questions to make sure, when are we going to get back in touch with our citizens to ask, get their feedback and have some of these discussions with them. And so, there is a citizens advisory committee like there was with the Long Prairie. There'll be the same thing for Mississippi Brainerd, allowing those citizens to have those touch points, making sure we're checking in, because at the end of the day, as I mentioned before, this is a plan that helps citizens, make improvements on private lands. And so we need to have those conversations, and we need to make sure that we could have the greatest plan in the world, but if we don't have citizens that are willing to, put those projects in place, then we might have some issues with implementation. So I really would say thank you to Todd for your bringing that to the forefront of making sure your citizens are engaged in the process. A couple other things. I got a little bit of a legislative update that was provided by our legislative coordinator. This came out on May 24th. There are some things that happened at the end of the session, and some things that didn't, that we were hoping would have gotten through. There are the ominous legacy bill went through, and part of that was the Outdoor Heritage Fund. That's the money that get put toward habitat from our legacy amendment, that 3/8% 1%. And so some of the things that came to Bowser that were, I think, important were dollars for our RIM program, which is Reinvest in Minnesota. That's those conservation easements where landowners agree to take a payment in lieu of then agreeing to not develop their property in the future, to keep that under either forested or in permanent grasslands. And so we got money, like I said, for RIM for our grassland folks, for some buffers, RIM wetlands. One thing that I think is really great is the Camp Ripley and their Sentinel Landscape ACUB program. Phase 10 received funding to do easements around camp, and the report last night was that 36,000 acres have been protected around camp since, I think it was 2005. And so it's one of the most successful military installments in the nation as far as being able to protect that the land around camp. It was interesting because during the presentation by Camp Ripley staff, they mentioned that there's another installation down south that turned out that they were told that they could no longer do any more certain types of practices and that on their spot, because they were the only habitat for a certain type of woodpecker. And so so the federal government came in and said, you can't do that. And so what happens is, when you get these, when they were originally put in place, they're meant to be rather rural, but then everybody starts to kind of build around because they end up really being an economic hub. And so what they're finding is that they want to protect those lands within a certain distance around camp so that they don't become an island of habitat where all these critters want to come to, and then they might be not able to do some of the practices that they need to do to stay sharp from a military perspective. So I thought that was rather interesting to hear that and why it's important for that. We also have the LCCMR dollars, or the money that comes from the gambling proceeds. One I think that's going to have an impact with you guys is that Bowser applied for a grant to assist with, excuse me, with reforestation efforts within, it's going to be in the Long Prairie, Crow Wing, Red Eye. I think those 3 watersheds are the targets. And it's just to, it's basically supplemental funds to help implement what's in your One Watershed, One Plan, and the landscape stewardship plans that help manage forestry within the county and within the watershed. So that's, I think, was helpful. Some things that weren't passed that might have some impact. The environmental omnibus bill wasn't passed, and that had some Bowser provisions in it for our local wetland replacement program, and trying to find funding to fund a tribal liaison position. We're trying to engage tribal governments more in what we do at Bowser. And then there was some funding requested by the SWCDs to help with some of their capacity, and so they requested $22 million per year. That was not passed, and there was some talk about it maybe being $6 million per year. So there was that discussion. Is still out there and hasn't been, nothing's been approved at this point. But I think I've probably spent enough of your time chatting this morning, and I'd be happy to answer any questions, or we'll let you get on to your next agenda item.
Just one question, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
The funding that we receive, if we don't spend it, what happens to it?
It's a great question. So when the funding comes, it comes in the way of a grant agreement. And so basically the expectation is that the funds will be spent in 2 years. It's a 3-year grant agreement. And depending on circumstances and reasons why, there can be grant agreement extensions. So it can be extended out to, I believe, the 5 years, the legislative max that we can extend a grant agreement out to. I will say that the message that we're getting from the folks in St. Paul is that reasons to extend, this grant time to spend the dollars is going to be kind of tightened up a little bit because the expectations from the legislature are we want these funds spent in a timely manner. And so some of the reasons that we might be looking for that would be a reason to do it might be, weather got in the way, something might have happened with the landowner that couldn't get the project going. But some of the, what we don't want to encourage is we just didn't have time. We ran out of, we just didn't have the time. But yeah, so there is, and ultimately if it doesn't get spent, then it could get sent back. Our goal is to spend
I guess,
those
and you
funds.
had urged us to make sure our staff are working hard to do this, and I agree with that. What if it's not spent? I think the outlook that the state would look at, or whoever gives us the funding would say, well, it looks like you don't really need that much money. So then your project would be cut. And that's what I fear is, we should be showing that if we have the need, let's spend the money and use it wisely and be diligent with it. So
I would agree. I think what you'll find is that, like anything, there are going to be some watersheds that will be able to spend the money quickly and well, and then some that might be struggling. And so there's the potential for some of those funds to shift to the folks that are getting the work done.
once you lose it, you might not get it back. So.
It would be a challenge. I would agree with that.
Thank you.
Thank you for the question. Any other questions? I gotta see, you guys are going really easy on me today. I was ready, I tell you, I was really, Thank you very much. I appreciate letting me come, and if you're lucky, you won't see me again for probably 18 more months, so, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Item 2, hiring freeze in county departments.
Yes, Mr. Chair, we brought this back to the work session for further discussion. As you're all aware, the population in Todd County has not changed in 50 years. Though the dynamics have changed. And I think with those dynamics changing, that you're probably seeing more calls within law enforcement. But with that, and being 75, I'm going to say 75% through the financials, and not seeing any increase in staff so far. I'd still like to do a hiring freeze for the next 2 years because I can't, and we can't predict what the economy's gonna do. And with that, you know, we're having a hard time right now just finding replacement people. So, adding extra staff, I think it's just gonna be a burden on the taxpayers.
Comments, questions, concerns? I can comment on it. I guess Randy and I have talked about this a little bit, and my feelings are a little bit different than his. I think we kind of have that in place already. I mean, everything comes through the board, so in the fact of being able to turn down or certainly have the authority to approve or disapprove, I guess I don't see the need to have that in place. I think it makes it hard if we have positions come in that are maybe completely self-supporting positions, or different mandates or things sent from the state or from the federal level, and certain requirements and stuff. So I feel as a board we have full control of that at this point already, and just don't feel like there's a special need for it, but that's just my opinion.
Mr. Chair, I agree with that. If you look at the potential consent items this year, we hired part-time positions, which we usually do every summer to help some of the departments. Matter of fact, I think there was 3 on there, which means if we did a hiring freeze, we wouldn't do that. And I didn't quite understand the logic, but if we can't get the applicants to apply, that means the workforce is weakening and we aren't filling positions and then not providing the services. I agree with you that we have a system in place, the Personnel Committee and the Finance Committee and the full board later, to decide whether we want to fill a position or not. I don't think we've added hardly any additional. We're replacing constantly. That's a pain. If you look at our coordinators report to us every week, looks like they're interviewing and trying to interviewing, reposting, trying to find people to fill positions that are vacant, especially in the sheriff's department. I think to say we're going to do a hiring freeze, which I don't know what that really means. If we freeze hiring, that means we aren't going to hire any more people, period. Mm-hmm. That's my understanding of it. And then we become hypocrites by saying, well, we've got a hiring freeze in, but we're going to do this and do that and do that. I don't believe in becoming a hypocrite, so I wouldn't support it. I'm sorry. I just think we as a board should be frugal and looking at the positions that we fill, and that's why it goes through the Personnel Committee and the Finance Committee before it even comes to the board for a recommendation. So
I guess I have a different opinion on it also. Being the chair, and before that being the vice chair, you see and you hear a lot more of what's going on than being out of those 2 positions. And to me, if it's not really a hiring freeze, but a hiring watch, if you would like to put it, a different word than freeze on it. But I feel that just like this morning when I pulled one out, not knowing anything about it until I got the information, to me that was a new hire. It was totally paid for. It wasn't out of the county budget, realize that. But it's to keep us more informed of what's happening and who's hiring. If there's a need for that hire, is there a need to even replace that person? I'd like to see that explanation, and we only get it secondhand information. So I look at this more of being the ability of all 5 commissioners deciding and hearing than 2. So if it's brought to a work session to hear some of this, per se, before we actually vote on it.
Mr. Chair, if I could maybe just add a little bit to that, not to disrupt the commissioners' conversation. The hires today take 6 to 8 weeks, more on that 8-week side than the 6-week. We can, I mean, if we get everything ducks in a row really quick, we can go through that process in 6 weeks, but that would be record speed. So typically it takes 8 weeks to do that replacement or a new hire. And if we would add another step into that process, which we could do, and have to bring that to a work session and then to a board meeting, we would be adding, if it was a work session and a board meeting, we'd be adding about a month to the process. And just to explain that timeline. And if there was a way that we could provide you more information to make you more comfortable with the decisions that you have in front of you, so you have more information, absolutely we'd be open to that. I did also, just maybe to help, I printed the personnel policy and highlighted all the areas of recruitment, selection, and hiring, just so you can see the checks and balances that take place from personnel committee weighing in on the decisions, board being notified of vacancies, board having an opportunity through the consent agenda. And I'm just gonna pass this Denise's way and she can pass it on down. But there are a lot of really good checks and balances that you as commissioners have put into place through, through the policies that we have. So I do want you to trust that we have a good process in place. That may not speak to the issue at hand with wanting a hiring freeze, but. So all of the yellow highlights that you see on that, and Denise, I actually saved it to the desktop as well, so you could minimize it. But I've highlighted all of the times that the commissioners, either as a two-person sitting on the personnel committee or full board, have an opportunity to weigh in. That's that,
Okay,
yep.
thank you.
And hopefully this yellow highlight shows up here. If you want to go to page 9, section 3.02, use your down arrow, Denise, next, just scoot over to that. The down arrow next to that page number. Yep. And keep going till you get to 9. There you go, scroll down. Yep, so those same highlighted areas are what you have highlighted on your sheet. So this just kind of shows the times that the commissioners and the personnel committee are involved in those hires.
So Chris, did this 4 and I don't know what his name was, from Sourcewell that's doing the culverts, did that come in front of the board as a new hire at a work session?
It would have come through a process of our summer interns, in which we discussed the wages for those summer interns at
But-
a work session.
His intern never came up. We've never had an intern in soil and water. Or is it soil and water, is it planning and zoning?
Sourcewell
Sourcewell,
interns,
yeah.
it's the Sourcewell intern
But
projects.
that never came up as a new hire. I mean, we discussed it at the township, at the annual township meeting with some of the townships. None of the townships ever heard of it. And they, in matter of fact, took it as a slant on them because they have their culverts. And if they wanted that research from them, why weren't they contacting the townships?
Mhm.
And I guess that's why I questioned that hire. And I said, well, when did that come in front of a work session? I don't believe it did. And that, to me, was a new hire.
Okay, well, we as a region with the 5 counties have the opportunity to take advantage of the Sourcewell internship programs. So we can probably do a better job of making sure every single year we bring that topic in front of the board to state that we want to participate in the Sourcewell internship program and identify those specific positions. It's completely funded minus the tax portion. Because we have a huge benefit to the county to participate in those programs, get projects done that we typically wouldn't.
I think the other thing that was brought up last night at our correction meeting is that we had a startup program that went for 2 years, was extended for another 2 years, and now it might be dropped off. So Kathy was asking last night, will the county pick up that position? Is it a new position? It's been funded by someone else for 4 years, and now at the end of this year, you know, what's going to happen with these funded programs if the economy changes, if so forth changes? You know, I mean, it's good today because it's getting paid for, but if you start relying on a program, who's going to pay for it in the future?
My answer to that would be that department heads have been responsible, and I hope they continue to be responsible in bringing those positions forward. When they bring them here and state that they're funded through a grant, they state how long that grant is for. When that position is no longer funded through the grant, they would be coming before the finance committee asking to put that within the budget. If it's not funded maybe through the ARPA funds, what is that end date, which we've kind of talked about.
Yes.
Making sure that we catch those and they don't become part of an ongoing budget that has not been approved. I mean, I think the finance committee does a great job of watching for those types of things. We do have responsible department heads who are bringing those things forward. I think we have a really good checks and balances system to make sure that we are watching all areas of the budget and watching staff, making sure that we are making good decisions on our hires.
And Mr. Chair, if I may, I'll just reiterate to what Chris was saying. In the past, because of my years of service here, we did have grant programs in some departments that when the grant went away, we just took on that burden and it never went. But we have been proactive with the finance committee and personnel in stating now when they bring something in that's a grant paid or funded through, that when that money's gone, you as a department head need to find allocations to support that, or it's gone. I mean, in the past, years ago, it wasn't stated that way, but we're doing a really good job now of saying, this is, like even with our ARPA, this goes through this 2024 and then it's done. And we keep reiterating that statement, so it's set in board transcription. So I will defend that with Chris too, that we're doing a good job on that aspect.
And I would hope even with the corrections, the discussion that took place at corrections, I would hope that when Kathy comes forward with her, you know, budget and talks about that, we have an opportunity to discuss that position. And I would expect that she would have that discussion.
Well, it's actually within the 23 budget, it will be taken care of out of the corrections budget, but going into 24
Okay.
is when that position would be.
So that to me states that Kathy's doing a good job of keeping everybody informed and trying to make that plan. And then it would come before either the executive committee for moving on to the next
And I
step.
only ask that for the county to be able to keep all the commissioners informed, as we were informed what positions are to that state. You know, do we have other positions out there? I have no idea.
Well, to me, I'm informed because I look at the minutes of the personnel committee and it's in there for our information to look at, so I don't know when I'm not informed. Because I've called in question why was this discussed at the meeting, and I've talked to Chris a few times about the minutes I've read from the personnel committee. So I feel I'm fully informed as to what's going on, and I think we've talked before about the Sourcewell hiring, and we had discussion at department head meetings and stuff, and I think one year we decided not to participate because they weren't gonna cover some costs. Obviously, I'm not a part of the department head meeting, but that must, I don't know if it was discussed again at the department head meeting. And if Sourcewell's got the funding for us, I really think we should take advantage of that for our departments to get some help to do some things. And I'm assuming this is, what I look at is this is just an intern, so this summer and he's done, right?
That's correct.
So, matter of fact, I think there's 3 seasonal here that are just, they work this summer and they're done, so. And we've done that since I've been on the board for 16 years, so, I know highways always had summer help, solid waste has always had summer help, and that's to help them keep up with what goes on during the summer, so.
We also have the boat and water
The
seasonal.
sheriff does too,
Yeah.
every year.
And so when we say a hiring freeze, that's why I say I don't wanna be a hypocrite. And this hiring freeze to me means no more hiring, period. So the statement to me is a blanket statement, and I think it should be, and I feel as Rod does, we have a good system in place to monitor who and when and what we're hiring, so.
So, number one would be no new hires, basically, okay? And the only way we can control that, really, where it first starts is in the finance committee, because the department heads, and we have requested the department heads to put down if they're gonna add any more new staff, okay? Now, this Sourcewell thing, I have no idea where the hell they're getting their money. I mean, I'm assuming it's taxpayers' money, I have no idea.
No,
But, you
Sourcewell's
know, they
funded
just
too.
keep coming up with money, and we just keep taking it.
First of all, does not rely on tax dollars. They are funded solely by their business that they conduct by projects that they do.
See, and I don't know that, but, yeah. But that's where I would be looking at it. If we're gonna start at it, then, we'll have to come back through, once we finish up that first round of finance, and say, okay, there is gonna be no new hires in 2023, okay? Unless all of a sudden somebody decides to magically add somebody after we're done with the finance committee.
Well, and I don't disagree with that, but I think we should say new hirees or replacements. There's gotta be some kind of verbiage, Randy, to clarify. If
Right.
somebody retires, are we gonna replace that position? And I think that's where the personnel committee should discuss that. Is it worth replacing or not?
Well, and that's up
So-
to the department head,
Yeah.
Dave. I mean, they need to explain the need.
Mr. Chair, we do that, if I can, just with every personnel committee meeting, whenever there is a vacancy, the first step is the board gets notified of that vacancy. The second step is that that department head comes before the personnel committee and states the vacancy, the need to have that filled. They could probably provide more information if you would like on the specific financial impacts. Those positions are budgeted, so they state that, and that might be enough for the department head for you to be informed that there isn't a financial implication because it's already budgeted. So those steps, those are the things that we do today.
When I was on the department head, I thought we had started that the department head, or I'm sorry, when I was on the finance committee, that the department heads had to fill out a form.
Yep.
And are they still submitting the form?
The Form A and
Because
Form B.
that's what we did at the library, Great Regional Library, the different departments within the Great Regional had to fill out a form and bring it to the personnel committee to say, justify why they need this position filled or refilled or create a new position.
That is what we are currently doing on
Okay.
finance, that we established from the very beginning. We
Okay.
have a form that lists the employees that they currently have, and then they put a narrative below if they're requesting any new hires or any
Yeah,
changes in those
okay.
positions.
And that goes through the personnel and the finance committee, am I correct? Or just the finance?
It goes through, just the finance for the 2023 budget. The finance committee sees that, so that doesn't necessarily go through personnel now. It'll go through personnel if the budget is approved, if the levy is approved with that position in it. Then the following year in 2023, personnel will see that request come through.
Okay.
That's kind of
I
a,
think that should be reversed, or it should go to the personnel first and then to the finance committee, budget committee. That would be my way of looking at it.
Mr. Chair, the personnel committee can only make a recommendation to this full board.
That's
It cannot make any decisions.
on new hires.
Correct.
If it's within the budget,
Right.
it
Cannot,
states
yeah.
that you have the authority
Just make a
to,
recommendation.
On new hires.
on new hires. That's correct, on new
Might I-
hires.
Might I say, though, that when I see board actions, I very rarely see that it is recommended by the personnel committee. Because we've had to ask those questions during board meetings. I'd
What-
like to see it on the board action.
That is something, Commissioner Kircher, that the department heads fill out those, they have a whole box for background.
Well,
And
I
they should
know.
be filling that in the background for you to be
Well,
educated on.
please revisit them on that. So-
Mr. Chair, if I
think the
can.
way, I'm sorry, I think the way we want to state that is not bringing it forward as a recommendation for hire, but it's bringing it forward as a recommendation to the board
Right,
for
right,
review.
yes.
I guess
just
I don't
wanna make
feel
sure
it
it's
should be a
gone-
leaning
No.
effort coming in from the
I wanna make
side.
sure it's gone through you, so I
Right.
don't know that all the
Yep.
time. So, as Barb said, sometimes we're in the dark whether it's been reviewed.
For
so.
review of the board.
Okay.
Not a recommendation one way or the other.
My other comment or concern is, and I know some department heads, leave a person, two people, whatever, as replacement people, so they're not considered new hires. At the end of the year and going in forth into a new year, I believe that the employees they have should be the hires. Anyone that they would be adding would then be considered a new hire. Because I know there's been departments that have had positions open and budgeted for, which puts money into a budget that they've kept open for more than a year or 2 years, and that's slighting our budget also.
Mr. Chair, if I may, going through that process of getting a full county organizational chart, I think that process is going to help us identify those. And that, I mean, that was really a worthwhile project for us to just make sure that we know exactly how many positions we have. And again, department heads are doing a good job of being responsible with that, but having that outlined so that every single year we can take a look and see what do we have for number of positions and where are those vacancies.
And I realize someone quitting at the end of the year or whatever, at the end, but holding these positions and budgeting open positions, I don't think is good practice.
Any other comments?
So, Mr. Chair, I would just like to know what the requested next steps would be.
I personally would like to see something come in front of a board that shows that as commissioners, we're aware of the expense it is on the county and on the taxpayers, and that we are taking our hiring in very manageable steps, and maybe to lay out the steps that we do take as commissioners for hiring, but to let our constituents know that we have a process that we're using, and we're using it very conservatively or wisely. But I would like to see something come in front of the board. And maybe it shouldn't be a hiring freeze, maybe it should be a hiring, the policy that we are following and what we're following.
Mr. Chair, I think we did something very similar to that. It was either in 2021 or in 2020.
We did.
Where we stated that exact same thing. That we would take a very close look at all hires. So that piece, and I can find that specific resolution, but that has been done.
Yeah.
You want to bring that piece
Just to
maybe up
reiterate,
for the next board meeting for review and stuff, for discussion, just strictly maybe for discussion at this point, or to see what was done or what was presented at that particular time?
I will do that.
Okay. Anything else? Yeah, you got anything else? Nope. Anybody else? All right, at this point, we will close the